You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Albert and Jonesy in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cantina Cast. My name is Albert Padilla, and this is episode 550, our breakdown of the last two most recent episodes of the Bad Batch, episodes Into the Breach, and Flash Strike. So we weren't available last week to record one. Well, technically we ran into some issues, but we're back. And actually, I think it worked out really well. I'll get Jonesy's thoughts and opinions on this, but honestly, pairing these episodes together worked better for me than having watched them separately. And I think that's been kind of a common theme among this season alone. But I'll get his thoughts here because he's with us tonight as always. Jonesy, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Yeah, it kind of worked out a little bit better that we had both of these back to back, and then we have a chance to kind of digest these together before we get to the season finale. And actually, Dale's in the chat already, like looking for predictions for next week and all of the rumors that are going on behind whether or not it's 15 or 16. So we'll be sure to touch on some of that stuff as we get towards the end of the show as well. So stick around.
Yeah, and if you're with us tonight on the live stream and we forget to, feel free to start throwing questions there at the very end because it's this may be a little bit longer episode since we're kind of back in two episodes together like this. But before we get started, I know you got some shout outs and some thank yous.
Yeah, some very special thank yous. All of our now part of the tribe members over on Patreon: Danny, Rob, Mike, Lauren, Dante, Riss, Justin, Jackson, Sharkman, Dan, Daz, Isabella, Uncle Leon, Josh, Jacob, and Rita Reborn. And then, of course, the Delusions of Grandeur members, our top tier members: Rod, CJ, Alex, Steve, and Daz. Thank you all so much. If you're curious about Patreon, cantinacast.com/Patreon. And this weekend, we've got a really fantastic show coming up as we start to get ready and celebrating the 25th anniversary of The Phantom Menace. We are going to have several of our top tier Patreon members in there to talk about their top 3 moments. Albert's one honorable mention, and it's going to be a fantastic show. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be fun to rewatch Phantom Menace, I think, at home, and then, into the next week or so, starting to see Phantom Menace back in theaters. Go get your tickets if you haven't already, because it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that show. I mean, we haven't done a Fact Boy in some time, but this had always been on the slate to do, especially with the 25th anniversary here finally upon us. And it's that movie it's crazy. The amount of hype and the amount of people that are talking about it, the buzz that it's getting is all appropriate. And we are in the midst of a massive hype machine that Disney has cranked out here for celebrating the 25th anniversary. But I don't know, there is something kind of nostalgic and something very cool about having watched it. I've seen it twice now in the last probably 30 days for different reasons. So by the time we get to this show, I'll probably have seen it another 2 times. And by the time we get to the release of the movie, I don't know, it's going to be 5 or 6 times at that point. So it's just crazy. I hadn't watched, that's more times than I've seen it in the last probably, 5-10 years or so.
Yeah, it's funny. A lot of the times you just see these in passing on TV when you're out, somewhere else, and it's on TNT or TBS or whatever network TV show or channel it's on. And it's cool to kind of sit down and actually make a night of it, though. So I'm looking forward to that a lot. Before I know we got a packed show tonight, but do want to say a special thanks and a kind of a special shout out to our man Daz, who we actually have a picture of here.
Hey, look at that guy.
Yeah, check out this good-looking dude. So this is Daz. He was over not only rocking a Cantina Cast Coffee Company shirt, which is really cool, but this picture's in London. He was going to a live Q&A with Daisy Ridley for her new movie called Sometimes I Think About Dying. And so it wasn't a Star Wars-related thing, but he was able to participate in that and was kind enough to rep the Cantina Cast to Daisy and tell her hello from us and things like that. So just wanted to give Daz a special shout-out. If you want to be cool like Daz, and rock a cool Cantina Cast Coffee Company t-shirt, cantinacast.com/store has all of your Cantina Cast wares that we could peddle towards you. So thank you to everyone who's purchased those shirts. To the Wayward Soul who bought a hoodie for the Tales of the Cantina, the Dark Times. It
wasn't me. I know, I saw that and I was like, hey, all right, wow. Thanks, man.
Yeah, I did that thing 5 years ago or something like that. I forgot it was even there. So that was really cool. Whoever bought that one, thank you.
Yeah,
that was a fun trip down memory lane. But yeah, special thanks to Daz, though, for wearing the shirt out there in public. And, maybe Daisy was like, hey, who's that? And now she's a huge fan of ours, I think.
I know the restraining order is still in place, so I don't.
That
think
only applies to you.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, so not to the rest of us. Yeah.
We're good. No, thanks, Daz, and nice looking beard, man. We were gushing about your beard before we went on the air. So,
and Daz is going to join us on Factboy, so that's really exciting as well.
That'll be his first show with us too. So it's kind of exciting. Looking forward to getting him on air and seeing his pretty face there. Yep. Let's see. Hey, just quickly, I want to do another quick shout out to Rebel Scum Apparel. If you head out to rebelscumapparel.com, this is the one I'm wearing today. It's like the Leia graffiti shirt. I love this. It's actually colored, and you can kind of see the colors coming through right now. I know I'm kind of in a dark light, but he set up a special code. So Cantina Cast 15 if you want to get 15% off. Go check out all of the shirts. I wore the 1977 Taylor Swift Luke Skywalker shirt to an event over the weekend, and I had at least, I don't know, probably 7 or 8 people like the shirt. There was one little girl who saw it and she went, "Oh, I love your shirt." And then she realized that it wasn't the Taylor Swift shirt. And
that made your day, didn't it?
No, I felt so bad because she couldn't have been more than like 8 years old. And when she saw it, her heart, like, she was super excited. And then I could just see it all melt away when I said, "Oh, it's actually Luke Skywalker." And she was like, "Uh-huh." And then I opened the door and she just like walked in. It was so awkward, but she was so excited. But anyways, it's a great looking shirt. He's got so many other ones out there. He's a great guy. And we don't get anything from this. I just love supporting. He's got some great stuff out there. So take a look at that stuff.
And check out his subscription shirt, because if you're a huge Luke Skywalker with the Return of the Jedi saber and the crystal, like the subscription shirt is the one of him, constructing with the
assembling
Force. It. Really cool. So a lot of great shirts out there. Great Phantom Menace shirts too. So if you want to rock something going to the theater, Rebel Scum's going to be the one for it. So yeah. That's really cool. I'm glad we got the 15% out for people. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I picked up all episode 1, 2, and 3 shirts as well.
Where do you put all of these shirts that you buy? Like between Five Below and Hot Topic and all of the online stuff, your investment in the Rebel Scum, I think you own part of the company at this point. Like, where do you put all these shirts?
They're all hanging. They're all
okay.
I hang up all my shirts.
You're one of those guys. You hang your t-shirts.
I hang my t-shirts. Yeah, and it's all just like maybe I'll take a picture someday so you can see it. It's quite impressive at this point.
To do a new addition to the house just to fit the
right, just to fit all the shirts in there.
All right. So hey, before we get started, why don't you give us a rundown of what's coming up here on the program for the next few days, or I guess the next week or so?
Yeah, I've got it kind of lined up here just because there's quite a few things coming up. But so Sunday again, like Jonesy mentioned, we'll be doing our Factboy shirt, our Factboy show. That'll be on at 10 p.m. Central. But just before that, Lauren and I are going to be on here for a special Jedi Novel Archives episode where we're going to go and finally talk about the High Republic Adventures, which is the comic that's by Dark Horse, written by Daniel Jose Older. It takes place during Phase 3, and we've not had a chance, honestly, to talk about this. I don't even think you and I talked about Phase 1 nor Phase 2 comics, unless you maybe did something, but you and I together have not had a chance to do that. So it's going to be finally fun to kind of talk about it. There's some really great stuff in there. And I think finally, not to spoil too much, but some of the stuff that's happening in that comic is spilling over into the main novels now. And that was not necessarily the case with the first 2 phases. So looking forward to that. That'll be, again, Lauren and I at 9 p.m. Central on Sunday. Thursday, of course, we're going to cover the finale. Depending on how that finale goes, and Jonesy and I haven't talked about this, but, maybe we come back and do it Wednesday night. If we're too excited and I can't contain myself and he's available and I'm available, maybe we'll come back and do it Wednesday. Otherwise, expect that show to hit on Thursday. And then next week, we will be in Austin. Jonesy will be here on location, and we're going to be attending the annual Silver Lake Creative charity event, which is called May the 4th Be With Y'all. It is a local-based event here, and we celebrate Star Wars in just about every way. So there's a kids parade. There's people dressed in costume. There's all these kinds of great sets that we put up. You can take your picture. And there's a burlesque, if you like a Wookiee burlesque, or what's the other one, the new one this year?
There's going to be a C-3PO and a Twi'lek, I believe.
A Twi'lek, that's right. That's After Dark. That's like the 9 p.m. shows for adults. And it's not like crazy. It's all in good fun. But all of it. And then they've got tons of merch and stuff. So if you're in the Austin, San Antonio area within the sound of my voice, head out there if you can. It should be fun. I think things kick off around 4 p.m. if I'm not mistaken. It's going to go all the way to about 11 p.m. Right. And we've got a number of people that I know that are coming out here. The guy that put my garage door in found out he's a Star Wars fan, and he's going to go. He's already confirmed that he will be out there. So I'm looking forward to meeting him. I already forgot the guy's name. But anyways, yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun. And Jonesy and I are going to actually record a show out there. Now, it won't be a typical live show like we've done in the past. It's going to be a little bit different. It's going to be from a certain point of view. And the idea here is we're going to start talking to people out there about what Star Wars means to them. And I've got a couple of different variations of that. We'll compile all that together, release that as a special episode, but you're not going to want to miss it because there are some really great touching tales that you'll hear in there. And it's just, again, fun to hear other people's perspectives about what brought them into Star Wars and why they keep coming back and why they love it so much. So all of that's coming up ahead. Anything that I miss, anything you want to add in there?
Well, man, right after that, we go into Tales of the Empire.
Yeah, right. Oh, yeah, there's that little thing.
Yeah, Tales of the Empire releases on May the 4th, of course. And so we'll see how we're looking on Sunday, how we're feeling on Sunday when we're back home, and see where we go from there and start to put those episodes together too. So it's an exciting time. And then we'll get the ramp up going to the Acolytes. A lot of exciting things happen here in the next month. How we're going to fit it all in is going to be pretty interesting. So stick with us. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, no sleep. No sleep at all. All right. I think that covers just about everything, at least that we've got lined up for now. Let's get into our episodes, and we'll start with our kind of our initial thoughts, and maybe we can do just both. How about that? Let's do both. I'll give you the microphone, and let's talk about Into the Breach first.
Yeah, I've been reading some comments online, and I just kind of want to address this first, where some people are saying they're kind of disappointed in the season, the way that these episodes are playing out. Are they building towards the right thing? And when I step back and look at this, I can see why people feel that way. I actually understand that pretty well when you compare it to some of the exciting episodes that we had last season. Some of the, like, even with the Zillow Beast, like, they were just kind of wild and crazy and they were fun. I think with this one, we're going to take a step back from this. We have to view this as a season long. Like, you really have to take and watch all of these in a row. When I think about some of the reviews that came out for the people who saw batches of these, like the first half of the season and then everything up to the penultimate episode, they got to see them one after another. So they got that really consistent story. If you're watching this like us week over week, I can understand where you feel like it's like just taking a while to get there. And I think when I rewatched both of these episodes, and I even pulled in the one from the previous week before that and watched them all together, I had a very different feel about that. It felt very connected and it felt more joined together, and it was really working a lot better for me. So I think when you kind of take a step back and do something like that, it makes a little bit more sense, and it really is a good season. So I think when people even say they're disappointed, it's not saying that they're a bad season. But I just want to kind of talk about that a little bit up front, because I think it's a perspective thing, and I think how we look at the season overall. I think one thing when I look at these last two episodes, I'm like, how the heck are they going to finish this thing? Because they've set up a lot, right? And I went back and looked at episodes previously. We've only had one episode longer than about 30 minutes in all three seasons, and that was the premiere. And so when I think about the season finale and a little bit about what Dale was saying in the chat at the beginning of the show, is this going to be an hour-long episode, or is it going to stick to this half-hour block? I kind of feel like it's got to be a little bit longer than that, but I'm really curious how it's going to line up. But anyway, key moments from these episodes, though. Yeah, it was really cool seeing Echo have a moment to shine. We're kind of having him about an episode and a half to shine, and seeing him in action, right? That was really cool. A lot of fun there. I love, Crosshair's like trust in Echo. Don't worry, Echo's on it. Man, love that moment too. Omega just seemed like a different kid all of a sudden in these episodes, right? You just feel the confidence and everything, just churning through her about what she's going to do. You want a secret, like the lines that she had in the delivery from Michelle Long of how this is being delivered is really cool. That confidence and that it's almost smugness at this point. Like, I've escaped from this place and I'm going to do it again. Right. It's just really cool. I mean, there was some fun banter with Rampart as well, which I thought was fun. I mean, Echo again, just the classic moments. You don't trust me, and everybody says no, or you think we're going to betray you, whatever it was. So those are the smaller moments I really like. And I think the last thing I want to say, give the Empire a little bit of credit in Hemlock, is we always give the Empire a hard time about being incompetent and doing stupid stuff and giving up on when the Bad Batch infiltrate and they get like wind that the Bad Batch is on their heels. Like, Hemlock is doing all the things you would expect him to do. Very competent, like very thorough. Make sure you go do this. We're going to put everything on lockdown. Make sure you search the ship and whatever. And we're having to see the team be a bit like use that ingenuity. Now, I'm really curious how they get to the base, because it seems like they're still pretty far away at this point. But a lot of great moments within all of that we'll talk through tonight. But
you might even say that Hemlock definitely had his bases covered.
Oh, yeah. Nice job. It's been a while since you've done a proper pun, so I'm very proud of you.
I was trying to find a good time to get that in there. Sorry, but didn't mean to interrupt with that.
No, I was about done. I think those were some of my key moments. We'll talk about some of the smaller moments as we go, but I really like seeing the Zillow Beast too. I was like, okay, there it is. All right, now we're going to get it finally. How is it going to creep in this season? There we have it.
Yeah.
And that might bring your whole theory about, okay, does it confirm whether or not Omega can talk to animals in the Force?
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up, because in my notes, I have an entire 20-minute section dedicated to my theory as to what she meant with that line at the very end. And it may touch on that. Let's just say that. It's funny, maybe not funny. We've been doing this a while together, but a lot of my notes are pretty much the same freaking thing. And you and I have not talked about either one of these episodes in 2 weeks. So first off, I'm not kidding when I say this. I think that Into the Breach might be my favorite episode. And I say that because it's not so much that a lot happened or we had these really amazing moments, but like minute to minute, it is the best written episode in my opinion. Not only in just the pacing, the way the how everything was shot, the writing itself was amazing, like beginning to end. Like a lot of the dialogue between Rampart and the Bad Batch. I mean, if these guys don't get at least nominated or they don't submit this for a nomination, I don't know what's wrong with them. But I didn't even get a chance to see who wrote that episode. But I thought it was an amazing episode written beginning to end. It was tense. It was suspenseful, like a true nail biter. You know, that last whole segment there where they're trying to finally dock and it just jumps off with the music kind of crescendoing. And I mean, it's just so well written. Now, that said, putting that together, it felt like, whoa, we got to a really big part there and then it dropped off and then we had to wait a week. And while normally I would say that's a good thing because it gives us something to talk about, when you back that episode with Flash Strike, that kind of feels like it probably should have been one longer episode, right? I think Flash Strike probably didn't benefit from it as much as it could have had it been thrown together. So back to your point here a little bit earlier, in the chat, one of versus CPU says, I think it's going to be much better when you binge watch it.
Absolutely.
And that's probably right. I'm with you. I probably have the same concerns. Number one, around how much stuff there is to wrap up. I don't need to have everything explained in this series, but that's not true. Yeah, you're right. But if they didn't, I wouldn't be upset. But I think there are some kind of bigger themes and some bigger, plots that they laid down here that I don't know. Again, unless we get a longer episode, which I would expect to do, I think we're probably going to get somewhere in the 40-50 minute range, and that's probably it. That might be even on the heavy side. I don't know. We're not going to get an hour. We're not going to get an hour and a half. We can talk about the speculated 16th episode that's being rumored around there. I don't even know where that started, honestly. But yeah, I think it is going to be a longer episode. I don't know that we're going to get a big kind of final epilogue like we got with Rebels, right? Maybe we do, maybe we don't. But if we do, maybe that's where they have a chance to kind of just throw a lot of stuff at you, just like Rebels did. And then you get to walk away and go, wow, how is that all going to work out? How's that going to play later on down the road kind of thing? But yeah, so just back to the episodes real quick. Rampart, I thought was great in both of these episodes. I'm going to hate to not see him if he goes away. I'd love to see him part of the Bad Batch, honestly. Now, I'd love to just see that dynamic. It feels like the A-team, right? You've got somebody who's just bucking up against them all the time. Let's see. Other stuff, Omega's confidence. I have it in here. Omega's confidence and leadership. I mean, she has her own little Bad Batch now, her own little team that she's, leading, and they trust her, right? And she's like, like you said, that's just seething confidence because of her training, because she knows that her brothers are going to get, are going to rescue her. She's almost got that Jedi confidence, if you will. So there's something special about that. I really enjoyed it. And then
can I just tell you how I got tingles when in Flash Strike when the laser cannons were going off, and they're like, well, what does that mean? It means my brothers. And I was like, ooh, that was cool. That was like my favorite moment of that episode.
Yeah. She had you were right. She had so many great lines in both of these episodes. She's almost like the kingpin of the prison, right? She's running things, and she's one up on everybody here. Stephanie says, what's the A-team?
Right. That's an inside joke.
Okay. All right. We're not going to answer that one.
These kids today.
These kids and their rock and roll. Let's see. Dr. Scalder. What an awful name. First off, I don't think who named this person Scalder. At first, I thought they were saying Scolder, and I was thinking, oh, it's like Scully and Mulder from X-Files, but no, it's spelled a little differently. Should name her
Scowlder. She just scowls all the time.
Yeah, I think that's what they were going for, but it's still an awful name. I don't know who took that as a surname, but
I like the dynamic with her and Emery, though.
Yeah.
She's calling them children, and she emphasizes that they're specimens still.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and then the Zilla Beast is the other thing that stood out to me, just because we loved it during the Clone Wars. We had it in season 2 for 2 episodes. Everybody said that was filler. And what we said, this is just the Purgo all over again in Star Wars Rebels, right? They threw out a big monster. Everybody said, what's this doing here? This is stupid. It's filler, blah, blah, blah. And then look, here it now it is. The season finale, just like the Purgo, it's going to play a crucial role in what happens.
Yeah, I don't think she's going to tame it or anything like that, or connect with it in the Force, although you probably think that's going to happen.
I do,
but
yeah. No, she's not, but she might tell the kids to try.
Yeah, that would be kind of neat, although they don't. We'll have to talk a little bit about that, like how these kids are actually going to play into the escape. I mean, we'll talk about that towards the end of the episode. But
yeah, but I mean, overall, I think these episodes are great. I really enjoyed Into the Breach a lot, and back to back, I think they work really well. I don't think they did a service to Flash Strike being separate like that. But at this point, everything we're done. We're here. So
and especially if the final episode does end up being a longer episode or an extended episode, coupling these two would have made more sense to me, like to just let them be that final buildup. Mm-hmm. Now, I think this is a timing thing of when they wanted to end by. I think they definitely wanted to end before May the 4th.
Right.
For all the reasons we've now painted out, that, they've released new content and they were doing Acolyte and everything else. So all those things ended up becoming true. But I think if it was a longer episode, I would have loved them restructure the calendar a little bit to make these two back to back. That would have been a really good move.
Yeah, I want to beat this dead horse a little bit more. I've got other thoughts around, why they made the decision to
We've
kind of
got
cut
all night, my friend.
No, I don't. I'm tired. But yeah, we can talk more about that in a little bit. But okay, let's get into the Breach. So we open with some great establishing shots of Tantiss. Mount Tantiss never looked so good. I mean, that was beautiful.
It is.
As horrible as that place is. We get to see the prison cell hallways. We're kind of going there. There's a commando, the scientists. They all kind of walk into the vault and wake up the kids. And this is where we're introduced to everybody officially. There's Omega. We've got Eva, Jack, Sammy, and Bairn, who's the little toddler child kid that was recently taken here. We see Eva with the Tuku doll. And I noticed that she didn't, she really didn't say much about that, when she had it, which is kind of cool of Omega. And then Eva says that they want them to play games. Now, I got a question. So the entire time, the scientists are watching them, and we know that they're there for their blood because they have high midichlorian counts, I guess, because they're Force sensitive, right? But why are they? I didn't understand why they're being observed. Is it just because they're making sure they don't try to escape, or do you think there's anything more into that? And I know this is getting into tinfoil hat theories, but it was just interesting that that was happening.
Yeah, I mean, the natural conclusion is that they're watching to see if they have any kind of Force abilities that start to show out. Mm-hmm. I think to quote Uncle Owen or paraphrase Uncle Owen, it's just, are they going to start showing something? I think also, are they doing anything? And there's only a few of them, right? But I think they are a threat in some ways, even though they're kids. If they start using the Force, they could, presumably create some troubles. I don't think they would have too big of a problem with them, but I think that's probably what it is. And just seeing how they behave, the games that they're doing, I'm a little curious what the games are supposed to do. Are they just supposed to stimulate mental activity just to keep them engaged so they don't start becoming vegetables, or are they actually, are the games specific and meaningful in some way? And I know that the team behind the Bad Batch, the whole creative team, likes to put a lot of meaning, a lot of effort into these games and that type of thing. And so, but I don't know if there's anything more to that other than what they're doing. But that's kind of where I went, though. They're just kind of monitoring to see if there's any inkling of them showing any kind of unique behaviors to where those M counts, they might want to go back and retest, or maybe subject them to a different line of testing if they start showing those abilities.
Yeah, that's kind of my take on it as well. I mean, I don't think they're doing anything more than just, now, what happens if they suddenly see somebody, using telekinesis, using the Force to float something in the air? What would they do at that point? I don't know. But and I think this plays into maybe that discussion that we're going to have a little bit later of how do they play into the finale? How do they play into Omega's plans to, do something with the Zilla Beast, whatever that may be. So more on that a little bit later. I did like the fact that they acknowledge that Carr is the nice one, right? I forget who says it.
Yeah, Eva did. Yeah.
Yeah, Eva said Dr. Carr is a nice one. So again, more fingerprints around this idea that she has got a good side, and we see that wholeheartedly, full-throated confirmed in the next episode, which I thought was really great to see.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. We also get that, they don't like them talking to each other. And then, of course, Jax talks about how, as long as they don't cause any problems, and he's thinking about when he tried to escape and what happened there. So we go back to the cloning facility on Bora Vera. We hadn't seen that in, I don't know, 2 seasons. I think that was season 1 that we saw it originally.
Season 1, yeah. So for those that might not remember, that's where we had a Cad Bane versus Fennec Shand when they were fighting over Omega. So yeah, it was great. It was a great callback to go back to that location. And of course, Rampart's like, where are we? Like, why are we, like, what is this place? He has no idea. And so it was really cool to get that callback.
Yep. And guys, I see your theories in here. I need to bookmark them somehow, so we can come back to throw them up on the screen. So don't keep throwing them in there. We'll get to those here in just a bit. But yeah, we're sticking around. They're waiting. A Fee had dropped them off there, and now they're waiting around for, of course, Echo. He arrives in this Imperial transport shuttle. I love this, and this is where the dialogue was just great, where he's like, do you trust that Hydra snake? And you can hear in the background, I can hear you. It
was great.
Right. That them just talking just out right in front of him the entire time. They start coming up with this plan, right? So they're going to go to Imperial Station 03, which is just outside Coruscant. And, we learn that the coordinates are sent from the Navicomputer to that ship. And from there, it takes off. So the ships don't already have these coordinates. So all this is, well designed and well thought out from the Empire. To your point earlier, like that, they're at least taking this serious. If they take nothing else serious, like bridges with no walkway handrails. So then Echo verifies at that station. He says, "This is where what's his name? Rampart says, do you think I'm lying?" Wrecker immediately they both say yes, right. And there's no level of trust here. I guess let me just step to the side here, and I kind of want to ask you this question. Yeah. What's that?
Rightfully so.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I would agree. Like they have every right not to trust him. But even at the very end there, like when to kind of jump into Flash Strike, he's actually, I guess, captured for all intents and purposes, like recaptured, I guess, by the Empire. And Hunter makes that effort to tell him, hey, don't forget, whatever happens, we rescued you and the Empire had you in the brig. So, do you think that at this point now, and again, I'm jumping ahead here, but I think it's relevant to the conversation. They didn't trust him at the very beginning. I don't think there was a level of trust here. By the end of that episode there, do you think anybody's been swayed one way or the other to trust each other?
No, I don't think it at all. And I think it's the interaction between Crosshair and Rampart in the jungle, right? Because Rampart is also still challenging Crosshair. He doesn't really think Crosshair's any different. He's telling him, like, you and I, we're the same. Like, the only people we're loyal to are to ourselves. And Crosshair has such a great line saying, I've changed. Mm-hmm. And you actually feel it. And you're like, absolutely. But Rampart wants no part of it. And I don't get the sense that there's any inner struggle in any of that he wants to be part of a team or wants to trust anyone besides himself. And he's very much in loner mode. Now, one thing that we had speculated on previously when Rampart first showed up was whether or not he would have any kind of loyalty back with the Empire. Would he want to sell them out in order to gain favor with the Empire? And that seems to be, I would pull back on some of my, concerns that he would do those things. But also he's an opportunist. I think that's the thing that's really difficult to trust with Rampart, is that he's just an opportunist and he will do whatever it needs to do in order to survive. And he enjoyed being in that Imperial outfit a little too much. He was a little too comfortable getting back into it. And that's where I started to feel like, okay, he's getting that drunk with power kind of thing going on here. And you can see where he's just easily manipulated or susceptible to that, feeling like he has any kind of power influence, because he's lost so much of that over the last year or however many years he's been in captivity.
Yeah, and it stinks because I like his character more than I ever have just this season, the last couple episodes alone, right? Given the dialogue and the conversations he's had, the relationship he's had, even though it is probably, it's not amicable, but at the same time,
he's not callous.
He's not callous. That's exactly right. Yeah, and I kind of want him to be callous, and I don't think he's going to be there. I don't think he's going to get there. I think he said everything in the second episode when he said, you and I are like, all we think about or all we care about is ourselves. And I believe Crosshair, honestly, feeling like he's changed. So we can talk more about what that actually means. But for Rampart, yeah, it truly is about himself. So I don't know that he necessarily is going to go all out and say, this is how they got here, this is where they are, this is how many. I don't think he'll go that far. But if there's a way for him to, say, oh, I'm a victim here and then get reinstated, hopefully get reinstated, then I think he's going to take advantage of it. I have I have a suspicion that it's going to backfire on him. Like I don't think the Empire is going to look at this favorably for whatever reason, you know. But,
I kind of have a feeling he's going to end up like General Hux.
yeah, exactly. Same kind of thing, right?
And I got to be honest with you, while we're talking about Crosshair, like these 2 episodes, especially some of those interactions, I'm like, oh man, Crosshair's dead. Like
think
they're
so?
killing him up. Yeah, I think it just seems like his fate is sealed.
Yeah,
I owe Omega and the conversation with, that he's changed and some of that. It's just, man, he's just setting us up.
I can see it. I think it would, the difficult part for me has been, how do I detach the relationship between Crosshair and Omega? Because going back to headcanon, if she does end up with Asajj Ventress and all that at the very end or whatever, and they go on and live a different life, they've got to separate those two. And the easiest thing, maybe not the easiest thing, but maybe the easiest but hardest thing would be for Crosshair to give his life for her, for the Bad Batch, for the clones, for the mission, whatever it is. And now she no longer has that, and she doesn't have to worry about it, right? She sheds that, unfortunately, from a storytelling perspective, and she can now go on and take the next phase of that, which is with the Asajj Ventress. So I like it from that perspective, but I don't like the fact that they were starting to have and continue to have a very good relationship, even if no one else understood it, and even if no one could get on board with where Omega was in terms of just how giving and selfless she is, even towards somebody like Crosshair who did all those awful things. Yeah, it's going to stink. It's going to hurt, I guess, either way. But I can see where they could be setting that up as well.
Right.
But yeah, so we're back on. Actually, I forget where we were now.
He gets the captain's uniform.
Yes, and the great dialogue here again. He's, I can't wear this. He's like, they're like, why? It's a captain's uniform. I was a vice admiral. A slight pause. Well, you've been demoted.
Yeah,
right?
Echo bringing the one-liners in this episode.
Yeah. You've been demoted. And then he ends with, I hate clones, right? Just that little dialogue there. So great stuff there. I love the exchange. We swing back over to Tantiss, and it's time for the morning samples. Dr. Carr walks in, starts taking samples. Omega starts talking to her, and she asks where the kids came from. She says she doesn't know. We know that's true. And she says they're being well taken care of, and that's where Omega says, are they? Right? Really, you think this is okay that you're doing something like this? And I think from Emery's perspective, I mean, she is kind of feigning ignorance a lot here, especially in both episodes. She even does a line, well, I'm just following orders, or I'm just doing what I was told, or whatever it was. That only goes so far. I mean, she knows something's obviously going wrong here, and it's why she does kind of come around it. At the end of the day, her conscience is getting the better of her because she has these children like Omega that she knows are in danger. Even if she wants to think that they're not, she can see all the writings on the wall. They are going to be in danger the longer they're more exposed to Hemlock, his experiments, the Empire. But yeah, I don't know. Any thoughts around, I guess, Emery's conflict here between trying to do what's right and still trying to keep her head down and do what's, the least resistance so she doesn't get herself in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to the conversation with Nala saying, I think she's trying, right? I think she's trying to do the things that, when she tells Omega they're well cared for, and Omega's like, well, I want to believe you. I think Emery's like, man, I'm doing whatever I think I can actually accomplish. And to your point, to where it doesn't get her head on the chopping block because she's no good to them. You're no good to me dead type of thing. But she's got to be able to do something. And I like that these 2 episodes, especially Flash Strike, I think, is that you start to feel that conflict and that emotional outburst that she has with Echo. Not to jump too far ahead, but to have that emotional outburst, like, I'm just doing my job. Like, you just feel that frustration of, like, she was dedicated to science, and she was trying to do what she was supposed to do just to make a difference and move forward. And yeah, the conflict was there, but also she knows it was wrong. Mm-hmm. Right. And to have someone like Echo, pull his helmet off and say, hey, you were one of us, right? How could you do this to your own kind, to your own brothers and sisters? And, I think those types of moments are really chipping away at Emery, and she's already feeling that weight. And there's going to be a moment here where she's got to make a choice. Like, what's it going to be? Like, what are you going to do? And I'm really curious as to your thoughts. Do you think she laid that tray down to Omega with everything open, with the expectation that Omega would swipe something, and when she glanced back at her, that she kind of acknowledged that she did take something that would help Omega? Do you think that was all intentional, that she gave her that opportunity to take something from the tray to do, I don't know, to formulate something.
I love the idea, but then I love the idea more that Omega was just exercising her skills and just being sneaky, right? Being the sneaky, the kid that's been trained to do these sorts of things. I like the idea of the way. I think one takes away from Omega and the other gives it to Emery, and I'm probably pro Omega.
I view them kind of complementary in that regard. Is that Emery is okay? What can I do that's small? But I'm going to. I see it as building Omega up a little bit. Actually, I kind of see it the other way. Is that she recognizes Omega's ingenuity and creativity, and she just has to be able to help Omega somehow get an advantage to be able to
an
leverage
enabler
that.
of sorts.
Yes, exactly. Like Omega doesn't have the tools around her, but if I give her an opportunity to take a tool, then she'll go on. So I found it very more complimentary than it would be, trading off who's making more of a difference. I thought it was very complimentary for the two to do it.
Yeah, I like that idea a lot. I do. And that's a good point. Good segue into the next section here, because that is, she picks up that tool, sneaks it into her little cuff there, and starts staring at the wall as Emery walks out. And we all figured, okay, here we go. This is Shawshank Redemption all over again.
Right.
And then and then she gets up to the back over to with Dr. Skulder, and they have an interesting exchange there where she says that. Hey, mingling with Omega's unwise, she says, I'm the chief scientist and I will run the vault as I see fit, pulling rank essentially at that point,
Right.
And trying to squelch any thoughts or any doubts that she's not there to do the job. But again, I think she's doing it for kind of to what your point was right now. I think she has to keep the guys up that, yeah, she's pro Empire, even though she knows that she's not. And then she knows that people are starting to see that she's not. They're seeing the weaker side, if you will, in the way she's starting to fraternize with the kids and, of course, Omega.
Yeah, and that's why it's all the more important for Emery to keep up appearances, right? She can't be so overtly doing something just to give people confidence or give Omega confidence that she's trying to do more. She has to still keep up that facade of, I've got to show them that I'm committed to the Empire and I'm doing all the right things, while doing smaller items on the side that somehow help them. But this was Hemlock's idea, right? I mean, Hemlock took her down to the vault and said, here's your new home.
Yeah.
So this was more his idea. And Skalder, I think, is voicing her displeasure with it and maybe assigning it to Emery. But I don't know that it was her call in the first place. Maybe it's her call to continue that. But
it might be a power play, too. Like, she might feel like she got overlooked to Skalder. I don't know much about Skalder. I don't know what, if she's of the same caliber, or she has some of the same skills or whatever. But if she saw Emery suddenly get bumped in there after Nalase, she could have been like, wait a second, I was next in line.
You definitely get those vibes, don't you? Yeah. They're clearly there, that competitive nature between the two of wherever they've come up through. And Emery's always been favored by Nalase or whatever.
Right.
So there's some sort of jealousy already built into the whole scenario.
Marsha.
That's right.
Yep, that's another reference.
Another reference
about what is the
kids.
Brady Bunch? That's what
Right.
she's going to ask next. Let's see. So there's one guard left, and once that guard leaves, I love this whole little bit here where Omega starts gathering intel, right? How often do the droids take vitals? Twice a day. Did the troopers ever come inside the vault? Only when they cause trouble, right? She's just gathering this intel, and she's applying, finally, I think, even though it's not as overt in her face, but it feels like all that strategizing that we were, led to believe that she was good and capable of when she was with Sid and winning money, doing that, whatever that strategy game was. It feels like this is part of that, right? On top of the skill sets that she's gotten from the Bad Batch, of course. But, she's gathering intel. She's trying to figure it out. She takes it one step further in the next episode when she scouts her location. She wants to know what the environment's like, right? These are all kind of foundational for her to make very intelligent decisions and good decisions about what to do next and putting together a plan of action. So loved it. It was a great grown-up moment for her. And, of course, for the kids, they're looking at this like no way out. Like, we're never getting out of this thing, right? They can't see that yet. But she's a leader, and she's going to bring them to see all that here very shortly.
Yeah, and I like, and the smugness kind of comes out. Can I tell you a secret? I've escaped this place before.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it again. They're like, well, how? And directly to your point, this is where she's like, well, I had training. So, okay, how is she going to get these kids prepared for what's to come? And I didn't do it alone, right? She had help. She had people that she could trust and that would trust her and to be able to do it. But she's the answer now. She's the one who can do some of this stuff and has the confidence to be able to even try it.
Yeah, and I think it's, not to dissect those lines too much, but her saying, I got out, I got out on my own. That's like, wow. So that instills confidence in the kids, like, hey, I've done it once, I can do it again. However, I got out because I had help, and guess what? You guys are going to be my help for the second time, right? She's empowering these people to think about it, right? She's giving them a vision, and she's going to she's going to hopefully execute on that. So it's a really smart move for her. I wouldn't say she's being manipulative, but that's what leaders do, right? They get other people to see the vision and to follow in line and fight for them. And I think that's exactly what she's doing here with the kids. And she kind of puts a final stamp on it when she says, "That's okay. I like a challenge." The way Ong delivers that line, and I didn't do it justice, honestly, but it was so good, so good.
Yeah, I'm really curious how the kids will respond, because again, they have experience where they got swatted down when they tried to make an escape, and it was desperate, right? And so when Jax tried to do it, he was put in isolation for a couple of days, and everybody learned their lesson. So again, doing it the right way, will Omega have some pushback from any of that? But again, that confidence, and that she's already demonstrating that she was able to, go inside the walls. And I know we're skipping ahead again, but it's all relevant, right? She's showing them like, hey, this is possible, and I'm going to help show you that it's possible. But I need you to, and like to your point, I need you to be empowered. I need you to be emboldened. I need you to be able to trust me that this is possible, that the 4 of us, 5 of us, whatever it is, can make a difference against all of, the impossibility of the Empire and the impossibility of this facility. And when her squad shows up, when her brothers show up, it's going to continue to build some of that, and saying, look, we've got to meet them halfway. We can't be in distress. We can't be waiting to be rescued and saved. We have to do our part too, because this place is big. This place has got a lot of nooks and crannies. They don't know where we're at. We have to take the initiative too and meet them halfway.
Yeah. There's we cut over to the Bad Batch, and I love that they burned off all the logos and all that. That was great stuff there. Excuse me. It makes sense for them to go in. I was thinking, how the heck are they going to get in there? They don't have stormtrooper outfits on, right? But
it was still a little bit weak, I think, but it was better than just going in like they were.
It was really all they had.
Because they stick out like a sore thumb, or
they do.
Sweaty Gamorreans, or whatever the comment that Rampart had.
Yeah, he's right too, right?
Yeah.
And to your point earlier, like, he's so empowered putting in that uniform, even though it's not of rank. The fact that he's wearing that uniform, right, and he's got that smug, he's kind of that. He runs his hand through his hair, like, I don't know what you guys are talking about, kind of thing.
Right.
He says, "I beg your pardon," but as they walk away, he kind of throws
sir.
Yeah, "I beg your pardon, sir." Right.
No.
There is a moment there where he's just kind of staring at them. He throws them a weird glance, and I didn't read too much into it. I think maybe having watched Into the Breach just by itself, I kind of wondered, but now having seen Flash Strike, I kind of put those two together and said, okay, he's just looking at this like, I still don't trust these guys, and this is kind of cockamamie, and if I get a chance to get out of here, I'm going to pull that lever.
Well, he's not getting any respect from them, I think, is what he's looking for. He's looking for some recognition and to get his ego stroked, and all the things that the Empire kind of gave you with your subordinates and those. He keeps looking for that from this team. And so he gives them this incredulous look like, what's wrong with you people? Look at me. I'm brilliant. I'm immaculate here. And I am the embodiment of the Empire that's going to enable your mission to be anywhere near successful with its impossibility.
Right.
And there's no appreciation for it. And he's just completely floored that they're not fawning over him and his ability to accomplish this task for them.
Yep. Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of ego at play here that's not getting stroked. And we continue to see that both in this episode and the next episode.
Right.
Okay, so we get to the space station, and there's a whole bunch of stuff. Rogue class, Alpha 44, right? They get the landing bay, and we get the exchange between Crosshair and Rampart saying, you're just going to have to trust us just like we had to trust you. And he's like, mess this up, I can handle myself, right? You guys are going to stick. You're the ones that are going to stick out because of the way they're dressed. But again, best plan that they have. And this is where we talked about where Hunter tells him, hey, we broke you out. Don't forget that. Because they don't trust him, and they're worried that he is going to turn coat as soon as he gets a chance. But he doesn't, which I think is still promising, right? I mean, he had every opportunity to just start screaming that these guys, he could have done that. He could have made a big scene, had everybody captured, and everything would have been over at that point, right? Roll credits. But he doesn't. So, maybe there's some good in him there after all.
Well, I think that's an important thing to comment. Like he's out for himself, and I think that's very clear. And he doesn't necessarily want back with the Empire, but it was really important for Hunter to say this back to him. Like, look, they betrayed you, you know, and Crosshair emphasizes this in the next episode as well. You know, keep remembering that. Like they did you dirty. They did him really dirty. They set him up as the fall guy and cast him aside, just like they've done with so many others. And so he has really no interest. And I like that we're getting this despite his infatuation with himself and the power he feels has been rejuvenated. He knows in his head, this is temporary. You know, this is a facade. This isn't real. And he's throwing his lot in with the Bad Batch. So he would have to really do some really hardcore, you know, intel sharing, which he just doesn't have at this point, you know, except, hey, they're trying to go rescue their kid. Well, hell, Hemlock knows that already. So what good, you know, what good does he really have for anybody at this point, except for himself? So, but I like that they keep reminding him about this though, because it's just a good reaffirmation of like, look, none of these people are going to help you. We're your only saving grace. And we are more likely to honor our agreement than anybody else would be. So,
Yeah.
you know, think twice before you try to turn your back on us.
Yep. There's and we also get that little, you know, they pull the old, you know, he pulls rank at one point there and says, I've got classified orders, right? You know, and then of course the guy runs off and he's like, I miss this, right? It's just the power that came with the title and the rank and everything we know to be kind of the culture of the Empire was on display here, and he certainly was kind of relishing in that. So they walk in. Of course, they're in plain sight at this point, similar to, you know, very similar. I was getting the shades of like A New Hope and, you know, storming the Death Star or the Death Star the way they did. You know, looking much more Imperial than he ever has now. They head into the control room. And that's, you know, the reasons that's do your thing, sir. That's where we got the line here. They said, I don't think so. He quotes Article 15. And then when they go into that control room, when they finally get into the control room, like that was like really reminiscent of of episode 4 when Han and Luke get into that room. I mean, if you look at it, they designed a lot of it right out of there. Now, I got a question about that guy in there because, I mean, we usually typically associate that helmet with like the Death Star gunner.
Death Star
helmets.
gunner was the Kenner toy, right?
Yeah, and it was a little awkward for me. Like, I'm not saying it. I mean, it was definitely a variation of that, and it's probably a precursor, right? But I just wonder, like, how do you see anything with that helmet on? It's just so big and gawky. But
that's a fair question. I think we've been asking for decades now. Like, how does anybody see anything out of that thing? Like,
it looks awesome.
What purpose does that weird dish serve at all?
It's iconic. Don't get me wrong. But I have questions. I have very strong opinionated questions. Okay, so Echo plugs in. He got to use his little scompy hand there quite a bit here, man, in both episodes. So
I'm telling you, man, these were like Echo's episodes
Moment
to shine. Yeah, finally. Yeah.
Yeah. I made fun of him all the last 3 seasons, and now look at him. He's the hero. Let's see. Wrecker's on his phone, sitting down, doing something. I don't know. He's looked like he's playing, you know, I don't know, Candy Crush or whatever. And that's when the lieutenant walks up and says, you know, where is your captain? Captaining. So, just little stuff like that. I loved it all. Of course, Wrecker sidelines him. We go back to the control room. Rampart's freaking out because he can't, you know, the stuff's encrypted, and Echo's doing his best to decrypt it. And this is where we get all the kind of the gritty details about how this all works. And, you know, just to recap, the codes are sent before they jump into hyperspace. And once they have the codes, they jump. And so this whole plan of originally, you know, just following them or getting the coordinates themselves once they've been uploaded, that's not going to happen, right? And so they kind of pull an audible here and say, okay, we're going to have to do something where we're going to have to attach ourselves to the ship before it jumps into hyperspace. And you can just see it all over Rampart's face. Like, this is absolutely insane. There's no way you're going to be able to pull this off, right? And he goes, you're changing the plan. Plans change. And I think it was Crosshair who said that or whatever. But again, another great line reminiscent of other folks in Star Wars who have said that. Echo runs out. You know, I started wondering, like, how the hell is he going to even get on board the ship?
And why is Echo the only one who could get onto the ship undetected?
So I thought about this.
Okay, and I gotta hear this because I'm struggling to understand why he's He's the only one that could get on there undetected.
It's not a strong theory at all, and it's actually probably more
Most of yours aren't
humorous.
though, so yeah.
Most of them aren't, right? But I mean, number one, he's got the little scompy hand, right? So he's got ways to get in. You know, one person using that to get in is different than 4 people or 5 people all trailing to get in, right? But I thought when he took the droid shoots, I was like, you know, maybe there's something in that chute that prevents like people that are, you know, 100% human from going into it. But because he's got, you know, he's more machine than man, he's got all these parts. Maybe that chute sees him as a droid, and that's, you know, he uses that to his advantage, kind of thing. That, again, that's not really the best theory at all. It's probably
I came to a very similar conclusion, so I don't know, either you're rubbing off on me or it's just that obvious. I don't know.
I don't know.
I was the same way. Maybe he's less human than maybe how we've given credit. I don't think that's true, but I was just curious. Yeah, I mean, I know, and again, it makes sense for him to be on there because he could do more from the inside. So, not questioning why it would be Echo. It was just the comment that he made. Just I didn't quite understand where he was coming from.
Yeah, I think Hunter is speaking from the standpoint that, look, it's Echo. And he's good at this stuff, right? And again, it's probably, you know, 1 person versus 5 is a lot easier, and that's probably it. If you want to take it one step further and get, you know, kind of ridiculous, then yeah, he's part droid. So he gets access to all the droid stuff, including the droid chute, to go in and out as he does in this episode, or at least in this episode and the next episode.
Now, I will say that was creative to be able to get on and off the ship, to leverage that, and be able to, because I was like, how is he going to get around, especially when it landed in the next episode? You know, how was it? And using the chute, like everything just kind of fell into place. So it kind of ingenious, yeah.
I mean, getting in and getting out. I mean, he was doing his best, like Metal Gear Solid Snake impression.
He was like super agile, up around, flipping on the side. I was like, hell yeah, this is ARC Trooper Echo. Like, we have to remember, like he was an ARC Trooper after all of this stuff, you know, that happened to him in Clone Wars, and this is what we expect ARC Troopers to be, and of course, what Clone Force 99 to be. So again, it was just really great to see Echo like in full, like just have his moment to truly shine and like really show his abilities and showcase him as a member of the squad in a very consistent manner over these 2 episodes. It was really fantastic to see Echo kind of finally shine again.
Yeah. And this was and again, well, like you kind of made the point again, you made the point, reemphasized the point that that's what Hunter was coming from. He was coming from that same standpoint. Like, yeah, this is an ARC Trooper. Like, he's got a lot of experience and he can pull this off. It's the same thing with Crosshair later on. Like when he says, relax, Echo's on it.
That's such a great line. And I love that it was Crosshair that said it too.
Yeah. Yeah. It was great. We'll get to that here in a little bit, but you know, you're watching this and Rampart has the visceral reaction that we all did. He says, wonderful. We're all going to die. Like, how is this even going to work? There's no way they're going to be able to pull this off, of course. And we're in the last 9 minutes of that first episode. In that last 9 minutes, there's not a lot of dialogue. There's only like 5 or 6 lines of dialogue. Otherwise, it's just intense music building upon it. You know, every measure is building on the one before it. Great cuts. The way it's edited is wonderful. You know, you've already talked about Echo kind of jumping around, doing flips. You know, we cut away to that line, the dramatic line of relax, Echo's on it. And then we cut right back to him. The music's going. Just the choreography or the pacing of this whole last 9 minutes. And then, you know, offsetting all of that those tense moments with our own tense moments with Omega, you know, and what she was trying to do by going in and checking the panels out. All this was really, really good stuff. But the kids are in the vault. The droids leave. The doctor walks away from the kids. This is where Omega starts scraping at the tiles. And then she, you know, knocks a few tiles off, and then you're like, oh crap, what's going to happen here? Eventually she puts them back in, right? As Sculder walks in at the last second kind of thing. And she's like, nothing to see here. But that was intense. And then of course with Echo, you know, running in the vessel, getting on board. And of course Rampart's freaking out. And he's almost got like this 3PO moment. You know, Hunter's acting very similar to like Han Solo. And he's like very much in the 3PO, oh, Mo, we're all going to die kind of thing the entire time, which I thought was interesting. Echo goes in. He stuns that trooper, after they had dispatched somebody because they detected something was going on there. Of course, he gets on the comm, says malfunction. Everything's fine. It was just a malfunction. And then I was just like, holy bananas, like, you know, the ship coming underneath it, you know, attaching at the last second and then popping into hyperspace. then go into silence, and then the ominous music from Tantiss itself playing at the very end. Again, I just loved everything about this whole sequence and the way everything was just kind of orchestrated. It was absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, it was all it was all really clear what was going to happen. But I agree with you 100%. I think the tension that they were building and like you actually kind of feel yourself edging a little bit further to your screen. Like, they're going to make it, right? They're not, this is the third to last episode, or yeah, third to last episode. They've got to make it, right? So there's no question. Right. But at the same time, you're like, there's just still that bit of tension and that buildup that they're successfully doing, which was really well done. I mean, that you can accomplish that telegraphing exactly, the audience knows what's going to happen, but for you to still build that tension and do it so successfully is really a testament to, like, I think with you, I think with, like you were saying, I think it's the editing and the way that they cut this, and we're breaking back and forth, seeing what Echo was going through, some of the cut shots, and we could argue how quickly some of those things happen, but for accomplishing what they wanted to accomplish, man, you couldn't have done it any better. It really hit it perfectly.
Yeah, and I didn't even mention, not that it needs to be mentioned, but I'm going to, the whole thing about the sensors, right? And that portion of it, him trying to shut the sensors off, and Rampart saying abort mission, right? And Hunter's like screaming negative when he says that. Like, all that just kind of builds on each other. So yeah, it was great stuff.
You feel the desperation in the team, right? I mean, you're like, this is it. I mean, we're not going to have another shot at this.
Exactly.
Like, we have to do it. And we are going into Crosshair's comment, relax echoes on it. That commitment to the team, that feeling that you have that faith in your squad and in your team is what made the Bad Batch so badass back in the Clone Wars episodes, and what has made them so awesome throughout this whole series is that they continue to accomplish the impossible. And yeah, we know they're going to accomplish the impossible, but that they trust one another to do what they do best is what this team, and it's really cool to see Crosshair in particular buying back into that, and to have that faith in Echo, and the team trusts one another, and they're moving this all forward.
Yeah. Well, and we had to wait a week to see what happened, but luckily the next episode we'll dive right into now is a flash strike, and we pick up right where we left off with them still attached to the underbelly of that shuttle. They're kind of talking about the plan. So the plan now is they're going to detach once they get to Tantiss. They're going to try to land somewhere further out, because that's what everybody does. And then they're going to try to hoof it into and get there undetected. And, and then they're talking about, like, Crosshair's like, we can't do that. That place is dangerous. And Rampart's like, yeah, at least listen to this guy. Right. Exactly. This is, again, more of the 3PO coming out in him as they're talking about it. And then, of course, we've got Echo now. I was thinking about that, too. It's like, holy crap. Well, Echo's on this ship. Like, how is he going to get off? Right. And, of course, he's sneaking around. He drags away that unconscious stormtrooper that he had shot before, they took off. He's in there. He's scanning the manifest of the ship. And I don't know that I don't know what he was looking for exactly. Like, I don't know if he's doing something that we're going to hear about later, but I don't know that anything happened in this episode that made me think, oh, okay, that's why he's been scanning the manifest this entire time. Now later, and he does it a couple times. It's not just once. Later on, he scans, he gets GPS coordinates to the medical bay or facility or whatever. Right. But yeah, I don't remember. I didn't get a sense of what exactly he was doing or why he was doing that. Any thoughts or theories around that?
He was bored, had to keep busy. I mean, he had to do something, right?
Hey, I know this guy. Oh, yeah, that's Jeff over in, yeah.
Right. I mean, it makes sense, though, right? You're there, you're collecting intel. Anything that you have that you can use, whether it's about Tantiss or about what they're doing, like what are the other things they might be doing? What are they shipping back and forth? All of that stuff matters. And remember, Echo, I think maybe directly to your point, Echo is thinking about the bigger picture with Rex as well. Mm-hmm. Like, how does this fit into this larger rebellion that's starting to, the seeds are starting to be sowed or planted, right? And what does that play into that bigger picture of what he can take back to, to the rest of the team outside of this mission of what the Bad Batch is trying to accomplish? So I view it more in that regard of him trying to build a bigger case and understanding what's going on here, because it might not just be Tantiss. There might be other things going on too. So why not take a peek while you're there, and you can kind of, lift the hood up on the car and then take an inspection there.
Right.
And I love that he took the droid's hand, by the way. He kind of looked at it. It was like,
we haven't got to that part, but yeah. It is a great moment. It's the funniest thing ever. Because again, I've given him so much grief about having his little screwdriver hand, and now like it was just cool that he has something to put on it. I wonder if he's going to keep it. Like, why wouldn't you just keep that from now on? Like, it seems like it's going to be a permanent artifact for him. So
he seems to hate it though.
Oh, really? Well, it's annoying because you got to take it off and put it on. But I mean, at least he can like pick up forks and do other kinds of stuff now. So push buttons on the elevator.
He couldn't move the fingers though. It was literally just stagnant. And he would when he was walking down the hallway a little bit later on in this episode, he kind of sighed at it, I think.
Did he really?
That's where I got the impression. I think that's the impression I got. Was like, he's like, oh god, this thing is so cumbersome.
Well, there's the moment where he like stands at attention with a rifle, and he's not holding the rifle. He's just got it. He's got the hand just placed on the, the rifle. It's great. It's a nice little gimmick if he keeps it. So yeah, he probably won't, honestly, because I think it ruins the look that we would expect from Echo. But that would be cool. Like maybe he gets it. All right, enough. We're getting into the funny stuff here. And
on Patreon this weekend. No.
Yeah. What's Echo going to do with his little screwdriver hand in the future?
Giving Echo a hand.
What's that?
Giving Echo a hand.
Oh, there you go. There's our title for that one. Okay. Boy, we're off the rails here at this point. So yeah, he's escaping. He sneaks away. We did the manifest thing. Okay, we get back over to Scorch providing an update. He's talking to Hemlock, saying that Clone Force 99 and Rampart escaped. Now they suspected they could be tracking the space vessel. They don't know that they were actually attached to the freaking vessel itself.
Right.
And this is where Hemlock orders the fighters to monitor airspace. So to your point, like I said, he's doing everything that you can possibly think to do. Like he's showing a lot of competence compared to what we've seen with the Empire. He's just up against the Bad Batch, and he's up against heroes in Star Wars, and that doesn't always work out, right? Our heroes always win, even as well thought out plans as they may have. We cut back over to Wayland space, so the shuttle's coming out of hyperspace. They detach. Suddenly they have the incoming fighters. Now, by the way, here and later on, I think after they escort the shuttle in, if I'm not mistaken, which is just a few minutes later, you hear the TIE fighter sound.
Right. Yeah.
I don't remember. Is this the first time that we've heard that?
I don't think so. I think in the last.
Have we heard it before? Okay.
Yeah, I think in the last episode we hear that scream kind of sound.
All right. I honestly didn't get a chance to go back and listen to it, and I didn't recall hearing the TIE fighter sound on those little, I don't know if they're even V-wings, I guess, or whatever those are now V-wings at this point. Right. If they're still calling them V-wings, but
they did in the audio description.
They did. Okay.
Yep.
But yeah, it was cool. That's all I'm saying is like, okay, the Empire's here. We got the ominous sound of the TIE fighters pulling away, but wonderful stuff. I love that. Hemlock orders the base to go down to lockdown, which is the smartest thing to do, right? No one gets in, no one gets out.
Right.
He tells Scorch to turn the laser cannons on. They start firing. And
so cool to see those and hear those. Yeah,
it was right. They would later show up on the Death Star and other places. And then as soon as that happens, they get shot, which is, they're in a shuttle and they're approaching a heavily armed Imperial base. Like this wasn't going to go well. We knew that, right? So the fact that he gets shot here and the V-Wings also I think they get some action in as well. But all this was leading up to a lot of suspense and tension and what we like in Star Wars, kind of having these multiple fronts, these battles happening on multiple fronts. All right, going back to Tantiss now, we get the kids here in the Rumbly, and this is where Omega says that, my brothers are coming for me. Like, again, all the confidence in the world about this is just a matter of time. The inevitable, right? It's just inevitable before she's rescued at this point. And I think that bodes well too. Like that confidence, the kids see it, right? It's empowering them. It's going to make them want to do whatever she tells them to do here in the final episode.
Yeah, it was just so cool because it was like, they found me, and she's almost surprised, but not. But also, you could just feel it was almost like a horror movie. Like they're here. I mean, you just get that excitement too of like, yes, like finally things are clicking into place, and you could just feel that excitement, and you can almost feel like her love for them really just swell up too. Like they never stopped looking. They did exactly what they needed to do, and they found a way. They always found a way. I knew they would, and they came through yet again. And you kind of feel that love and that pride, coming through. And it's just actually this is like one of my favorite lines like in the show, with just the type of reaction it got from me. It was just really cool to see that. I love family shit stuff. So
yeah. I think Skywalker's Academy agrees, and then my Star Wars guy says great scene. So yeah, good stuff from the writers, especially in these cool moments. Let's see. She says her brothers have found her. Okay, then the shuttle takes another hit from one of the ground turrets at this point. Shields are starting to fail. Hunter does his like free fall and, does a 180, cuts the power, 180, shoots one of the ships, then guns it, goes in between them. That forces them to separate. So cool stuff here, but we know that ship's not going to last, right? This thing's doesn't have a lot of maneuverability, and there are no cannons on this thing. So, they abandon ship. So they attach these toe cables to their waist. And Rampart, again, this is more Rampart goodness here because he's freaking out.
His screams are like, "Wait!" I mean, you hear the pitch go up several levels.
I think there are 3 screams, and if no one, they could have easily used like a what do you call it? What's the name of the famous scream now?
Wilhelm.
But Wilhelm scream, right? We've got to have there's got to be a Rampart scream going forward. I'd love for them to use that scream and sneak it in as Easter eggs in future Star Wars television shows and movies and stuff. That would be really cool to do.
It was very along the lines of like when Leia says like, "What?" when they're going to blow up Alderaan.
Oh yeah.
It was very akin to that.
Yeah. But yeah, he's like, "What do you expect me to do?" And then try not to hit anything on the way down. Wrecker and Crosshair jump first. Then it's Hunter and Rampart. His cable jams. We get him doing that blood hurling scream that he does there. Screams a few more times a little bit later. The shuttle then, they drop down. The shuttle explodes. And but like thankfully Hunter and Rampart let go before that goes up. And then again, you got Hemlock being incompetent, right? Send somebody out to the crash site immediately. They don't wait. They don't just assume because it went down that everything's fine. He wants proof. But on top of that, he orders that that vessel, the science vessel, before it gets in, gets scanned as well. He's just not taking any chances with any of this stuff. So again, I loved all that, and I don't know if it's it probably goes unnoticed, honestly, but it's such a detachment from what we see with the Empire, throughout a lot of this, and especially in Legends. I mean, they're so incompetent, and you got somebody like Hemlock here that's subverting expectations.
Yeah, I mean, and the irony is like we want the Empire to be a little less cartoony. A lot of the times we want to, when our heroes accomplish something against something like the Empire, we want it to truly feel like they accomplished it. And they didn't just get by on the Empire's incompetence, because clearly they're not incompetent. They do a lot of things that you would expect them to do. You expect them to be just as bad and evil and a bit dogmatic and a bit adhering to disciplined ways, which can be a weakness, and I think that's fine. But having a competent leader that says, do all of these things, and you're like, yep, that's what I would do. That's what I would do. Stand the ship, stand everything in the ship, make sure every person is accounted for. They're doing 1-by-1 inspections of each person. You can see Scalder down there, like looking at the pad and scanning each of the troopers. They're doing all the things you would expect them to do. So when your heroes accomplish something, it actually feels like they were creative with what they did. And it just feels all the more meaningful. And I think that's what we see here is like our team is doing things that make them special and make them feel more special to get into this impossible facility.
Yeah, it was reminiscent, not exactly, but I was hearing shades of, Commander, tear the ship apart until you found those plans and bring me the droids. I want them alive. Or bring me the passengers. I want them alive. Right.
Right.
Similar to that, right? Leaving no stone unturned in terms of what they're doing. So something like Vader would do, right? That level of competence kind of thing.
Right.
This is where Echo walks out. Now he's got the Stormtrooper armor on, except for his arm, which we've already talked about. Scorch. He goes into the ship. He starts scanning. He has a confrontation with that guy or whatever, saying, this is Hemlock's order, right? Name drops him. I loved his reaction. He's like, fine. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're asking me to do this kind of thing. So they board, they search. And meanwhile, all that's going on, we know that Echo is making his way out the droid chute. But we cut back over to the jungle surface, and Wrecker and Hunter are looking for the others. They're contemplating whether or not they should break radio silence, which is really kind of a bad idea. I guess that would be the last resort if they had to. But Crosshair says, we need to move towards the base. They have a nice little exchange there, where Wrecker's like, you broke out and didn't think you'd be breaking in now, would you? And I like that he says, I'd rather not be doing either one of these, honestly. Like it was like he was clear 3 episodes or 4 episodes ago saying, I never want to go back to this place, and yet here he is.
Right. Yeah, we see him, they focus on the hand and he kind of pulls away and a little bit of a shake. But again, he's committed to Omega. She could have left me behind, but she didn't. And I owe her that. And I think that you talk about what he says to Rampart a little bit later on. Like you're only loyal to yourself. Like, no. And he says, I've changed. He really does mean it. And I think it's this moment that you really feel that of, if Omega has really changed something in Crosshair that says you can trust and you can believe in your family and you can believe in me, Omega, and we're not going to leave you behind. We didn't want to leave you behind in the first place. You can trust and believe in us. And so he can put aside his his anxieties and his fears about this place and know that it's the right thing to do. And this is also where I was like, oh, dang it, Crosshair's dead. So I mean, I figured he was dying anyway in this season, but at the same time, I was kind of hoping maybe there was a chance, but I'm like, oh, that poor guy.
Yeah, they might. Again, I think we talked about earlier, they could be setting that up. I can see where they would do it. This is probably further proof, but I got a question though on this line because he's talking about how, he says that he owes it to Omega and that he's changed. And I guess the question is whether or not do you feel like it's Omega exclusively and he's only doing this because they are looking for Omega as well, or do you think he's changed so much that he's back in favor of, doing it for the Bad Batch? And the bigger question, doing it for the clones. Like, do you feel like he sees the vision or he's doing this or he's bought into Omega's vision and Rex's vision about, hey, we got to get everybody out of, Tantiss? How far do you think that extends, I guess?
Yeah, it's a tough question. It's a good question. I think generally he's back with the squad and whatever the squad wants to accomplish, I think he would be on board with that. Going back to Tantiss, I think he would probably push back really hard on, though, if it wasn't for Omega.
Yeah,
So
that's where I'm with you there
That's where I
too.
meant that one.
No, I'm with you. Like I at first on first watch, I was like, oh crap, he's really just doing this for Omega, and so we could find ourselves in a situation where if it, unless she's in danger, he may let Hunter go or let them get captured or whatever. After watching it again, and in the context of both of these episodes now, I think it's more along what you're saying. I think he's rededicated himself to the Bad Batch. I think he feels like he is a part of that group as well. I still am not 100 convinced that Hunter and Wrecker see him as such. Maybe Wrecker again more than Hunter, but I haven't got a lot from Hunter yet that's been like, hey, good job, buddy. Glad you're back kind of thing. He's not been reaffirming that, right?
It's not really him though either.
It's not really his style. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. But I think that's what's left some doubt in me to think that he feels that way. But I think that's probably as far as it goes. Like, I'm with you. I don't know that he's bought into Omega's vision. Like, sure, if they can make it happen and he can be a part of it, fine. But I don't think he's going to go lay down, lives or his own life for the sake of all the clones. Now, he could have a moment in the final episode where suddenly he has that kind of change, or he has that epiphany or that realization that I need to do this, and it's not just for Omega, it's not just for the Bad Batch, but it is for all of my brothers, and he finally buys in 100%. That would be awesome to kind of see, right? His sacrifice, whether he dies or not. But I don't think he's there yet. I don't think he's kind of bought into that grander, larger, scale kind of vision just yet.
I think he's kind of close though. So I think he's buying into the idea of family, and what's best for the family really is best for all of us. And I think he's getting there though. And I think if that's what the family thinks is best and what they want to do, and I think this is why the comments about Echo and that faith in Echo, I think was part of why I probably started to feel more this way. Is that he views Echo has been really, detached from the team, but I think that Crosshair still recalls those and has that faith, and the team is back together and working, as a unit again. I think some of that will feed into to where Crosshair does feel more attached to what Echo is doing, and then by extension to what Echo and Rex believe in and what they're fighting for, and how the team wants to move forward collectively after these series of events, if they all survive. But I think if you were to ask him in these moments, that's the path that he's starting to go towards by building each of these individual relationships back. I think he'll get there.
Yeah. It's all kind of crawl, walk, run kind of thing. So it's progressive.
Exactly. Yeah,
in that sense. Okay, they find Rampart and Hunter at that point. There's that whole line about, oh, he made it, unfortunately, yes, kind of thing. That was a good little, cheap shot at Hunter there, or at Rampart. The dropships fly in. They kind of scan they land at the crash site. The commandos are looking around there. They don't find anything. And so then they order a radial search. So they're going to start searching the perimeter again, leaving no stone unturned. And later on, Just kind of throw this in there. It's a little bit later, but they even bring in the lurkers, which was kind of cool to see them, go in with the dogs, if you will. The hounds start looking around, and the dropships start patrolling the skies as well. So they're going, doing everything within their power and their reason to try to find any survivors, because they're not just going to assume that these guys died in the explosion.
There's some really great cinematography within the whole jungle sequence as well. From the ship going down, when there was a down up, like from the ground up canopy shot, where you had them kind of framed with the sky behind them looking up at the ships going overhead, was just a beautiful shot. And I mean, the greenery in the jungle looked fantastic, but also the lighting and the depth and everything else going on was really good. I mean, this episode was really, really, really high quality with some of the cinematics.
Yeah, you're right. And this I think we've talked about it this season alone. I know it was kind of maybe not, spotted in seasons 1 and 2. There was definitely moments here, but for whatever reason, this season alone has been they're just doing everything right as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, every year it gets a little bit better.
Yeah.
I guess my question to you though is that, so they make a comment that Rampart is starting to drag behind, and you get, if you fall behind, you get left behind, which is a little against the creed. But again, you look at Crosshair of being a bit more, at least in Rampart's perspective, being a loner and being only out for himself. Do you think Rampart was falling back on purpose to go back to maybe question of wanting to get caught by the Empire or something like that? Did you feel like any of that was intentional, or do you think that's just him being out of shape and not really completely out of his element?
No, I think about it like, if you look at, again, I'm not part of the military, but I grew up in a military family. And there's always this kind of like officers versus the soldiers, right?
Yeah.
And the officers all have their positions because they were given to them. None of them ever earned it. And so they don't know what it's like to go, do a 10-mile hike. And so when you bring an officer in, usually they're the ones that are out of breath first, so they're falling behind. I think that's what they were looking at. This is like, like you said, he's not. This isn't what he does. He's not a soldier. He's not in the jungle.
To be
all the
clear,
time.
we're talking about Star Wars officers, not like our servicemen or anything like that.
Yeah, and I'm not saying I think that, but I know for a fact that's what they think. Like,
right? Yeah.
People, they look up to officers as like, hey, these guys, went to school.
Out of touch.
They're out of touch. They're not down here with us, and the quote grunts or doing the groundwork or the legwork that's necessary. They don't know what it's like, and so when you put them in that environment, they fall behind. All right, and I think that's kind of what they were probably just more than anything reminding him that he is an officer, and this is not, he's out of his element in a lot of ways. More than anything else.
This is what the pace of a mission looks like. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Right. This is what we do. Okay, so this is Echo's escape. This is where he finally gets the hand, by the way. He shoots that one little protocol droid, steals his hand. And then this is where he gets out with the droid shoot. And then he, very quietly, very solid snake-like, goes and falls in line with the rest of the stormtroopers. And, we see the door that closes right behind him, which I thought was kind of a cool segue into the next. So we go back to the vault now. All the vitals have been taken. Everybody's gone. And this is where Omega says, I need to go check some things out. And she needs them to cover for her. And they had this cute moment where like, what do you mean cover? Like, what are you asking us to do kind of thing? And I, true great leaders, she doesn't give them specific instructions, right? She entrusts them to come up with their own. She says, you'll think of something. I'm counting on you. Now, you could look at that as good leadership. You could also look at that as lazy leadership as well. I tend to look at it as the first. Like she knows that she trusts them and she sees more in them than they do in themselves, and she's allowing them to kind of explore this and build their own self-confidence by coming up with ways to kind of cover for her.
Yeah, and I love the excuses that they come up with too, because they're all very childlike. Like, I'm hungry. I don't feel well. It's like every excuse you have when your kid doesn't want to go to school, right?
Or go to bed. I want another drink of water.
Right. Can we talk for a little while? Hey, can I go? I mean, and Jax was the only one. Hey, can I go next?
Yeah, right.
And she's probably like, what is wrong with you kids? I mean, but you just see the truly wonderful the mind of a child is of just what they come up with, because that's just all they were exposed to, right? That's what's most important to them. What would be the thing that jumps out to them, and so it was cute that those were the things they came up with.
Yeah, and let's see. In my notes, it says, now, as a parent, this is just normal bedtime routine behavior. Right. Because, if you're a parent, you've heard all these excuses and more. I heard a noise. Right? I'm too hot. Whatever it is to stay up a little bit later. Okay, enough of that. We'll come back to their excuses here in just a second. But yeah, I mean, she's basically challenged him to kind of come up with, whatever they can come up with, because she needs to stall. And she leaves her room after she removes the tiles, and then she goes into the service shaft. And, to kind of put a bow on all that, I mean, she's essentially just going through and following the shafts to see where these the red vials are going to. Right. I think trying to find her way back to like the medical bay where Emery is or something. I'm not really sure. At some point we'll get to the Zillow Beast here, but we cut back over to the jungle hike. And this is where we get the line about him falling behind. I think I love that he says, I thought good soldiers follow orders. And slight twist now, it's not good soldiers follow orders. It's good soldiers follow orders depending on who gives the orders.
Right.
Right. Nice little variation on it. Enjoyed that.
An important distinction, right? I think that's the lesson that Crosshair's learned. You have to be willing to follow the people who are telling you what to do. And he's got and I was really disappointed that didn't resonate more with Rampart, right? Because Rampart has been in that situation of being betrayed by your leaders and what they did to him. So I was surprised it didn't resonate more with him, but maybe that's just that arrogance and that smugness and that he can only think about himself.
Yeah. This is where you're like me, loyal to no one but yourself. Crosshair says I've changed, and we've talked about what that means already. At a minimum, I think it's at least in the context of this conversation, he's saying that I don't just follow orders blindly anymore, right? I'm going to think for myself from going forward and from now on. And of course, Rampart is not convinced. He's like, yeah, sure you have. And he has that little parting line there under his breath.
Yeah, he's like, we'll see. I mean, I was like, okay, well, what is he going to do that is going to test Crosshair? And I think that's one of those lines that's probably not going to have a payoff.
Yeah, it would be cool if it does, though, because I'm with you. I kind of heard that and I thought, oh, what's going to happen? Are they setting something up there?
Right.
Let's see. We get Echo. We cut back over to Echo. He's still milling about with all the other stormtroopers. He's still pulling up, manifests or whatever. This is where he jacks into the GPS, gets the coordinates over to the medical bay, and then he heads off to that area. More Omega in the hall, in the walls themselves. And then we get back to the jungle where now we've got Hunter and the crew. They're taking cover as this is that shot you were talking about where the stormtroopers are kind of flying over them. They're searching for them. They press on and they come up to a wall. And this is where, again, Rampart showing his signs. What does he do? Right? Typical officer, typical scoutmaster. The first thing you want to do is lay down and take a nap, which is what he does. Like, I'll let the guys figure it out. You tell me when it's time to go, kind of thing. But this is where also the Dryax, where we get our monster of the week. Like, it was kind of weird. We didn't have one last week. But this is, kind of part of the recipe for the Bad Batch. It's this monster of the week. We finally get to see it in all its glory. I don't think we had seen one this close or up close since the season started, the series started.
Yeah, that's probably right.
But yeah, it was great. Of course, they don't want to use their blasters because they don't want to give their position away. And then we get into the whole action sequence where Rampart starts running off, screaming. Hunter's, fighting it with his knife. Crosshair butts it with the rifle. Wrecker jumps on its back and gets thrown off. Of course, he falls unconscious at that point. They kind of lift him up, and the beast gets stuck between two trees, which is very convenient. But you know what? It's a kid's cartoon. Kind of get it. It's going to happen. And then I don't know if you heard this, but, Rampart's running off. And, he falls down or whatever, and he screams, and he gets the attention of those stormtroopers. Did you hear the guy from Texas as one of the stormtroopers out there? When he falls down, that one stormtrooper says, "Did you hear that? There they are. Listen to it." He's got like this southern drawl. I don't know why they decided to do that or who the heck did that voice or that line. But I was like, holy crap, it's a Texas bumpkin on the Imperial staff.
I will have to go listen for Tex. Yeah, Tex the stormtrooper.
We'll call him Tex, yeah. Yeah, you clearly, did you hear that? There they are. Okay.
Oh, boy.
Yep. I don't know. It was a little bit much, if you ask me.
They really will bring anybody in to be a stormtrooper one time.
Well, I started thinking about it, too. I was like, I wonder if somebody got, that's like a little cameo role and someone's bragging about it like it's, Matthew McConaughey or somebody. I got to be a stormtrooper.
I would have recognized Matthew McConaughey.
Well, that's true, too. This guy's screaming, so it's hard to tell. And it could be Oklahoma accent. It was hard to really pinpoint exactly where, but it's definitely either Texas or Oklahoma.
Somewhere in the Southwest.
Somewhere in the red dirt area. Yep. Let's see. So the beast then starts attacking the stormtroopers. The other stormtroopers find Rampart at this point, and then he's captured. And we don't really get to see, you know, what happens to him, at least in this episode. So that'll be interesting to see where
He does seem
shows
pretty
up.
defeated though when they're over him. He's like, oh crumbs.
Yeah. Yep.
So it did kind of affirm that he does not want to be captured by the Empire.
Right.
You know, to my point earlier.
Yeah, because again, this is another opportunity where he could have just like spilled the beans on everything and said, you know, I'm not with them.
Take me to Hemlock. I'll tell him everything. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, but he doesn't. So
well, he hasn't yet. We'll
hasn't
see
yet.
where it goes. Yeah.
I don't think he will, but he hasn't yet. Okay, we get this is where we get the whole the very tense scene where Skulder starts coming in to do the examination time, and the kids do their best to stall. We've already talked about exactly what they did, but kind of in the midst of all of that, all the excuses, we get to see Omega see the Zillo Beast again, which we talked about at the very top of the episode. We hadn't seen that since season 2. There was 2 episodes in there, and we learned that they had been experimenting on one or whatever, and now we get to see this payoff here that is going to play into Omega's final plans to get out of Tantiss, or at least bring Tantiss down. It's hard to tell how large this thing is. It looked pretty big. I don't think the size of Clone Wars Zillo Beast, but it's grown pretty substantially since we last saw it.
Yeah, it's still a pretty good size, and they've got like a ray shield in there that's protecting it. But this is what we had speculated at the beginning of the season, right? Where they were saying that they were trying a lot of different things on a lot of really big things, and so we knew something else was lurking in Tantiss, of course, with all the things that they were doing there. So that we have the Zillo Beast make another appearance makes a lot of sense, and it kind of fits with this series, right? These big Godzilla, King Kong type monster, monsterverse type of
the kaiju of Star Wars.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, these mythical type of beasts show up, right? Like a mythosaur. I mean, they're on that level. Like these are that tier of character or of beasts. So these creatures show up. It just makes a lot of sense. So we'll see where this goes, though. I'm really curious how they leverage the Zillo Beast, or if the Zillo Beast just breaks out itself. They just let it loose and they find a way out after that, or if they actually directly influence in some kind of ways.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I'll try to be grounded as much as I can. I think the easiest and simplest answer will be they find a way to let this thing go, right? And suddenly, and that's enough. Like they've already established the thing is being tortured, so it has some beef against the Empire, and so for all the right reasons, it's going to, if it gets loose, it's just going to wreak havoc on them and everything else around them, right? That's the simplest answer, and probably the cleanest one. There's also a part of me that thinks that what if she then decides that she's going to, yeah, that's exactly right. I think Omega, because, we had that moment at the very end of that Ventress episode, and it was a great moment, right? But Omega learned something very cool there. Now, she may not be able to do it herself, but there could be an opportunity where she tells the kids, reach out, and we may even see an echoing, no pun intended, but an echoing of like that same scenario where the kids are going like, reach out to what are we supposed to feel, right? I've seen people like you guys can do this kind of thing. And it could be as simple as, because that beast is being tortured and it's sad and it's got so much sorrow and anger or whatever else, that might be enough for the kids to kind of feel something and maybe encourage the beast to do more. I don't know. Again, that may be too far-fetched, and I don't know if they'll have enough time to do it, honestly, all this, but it would be cool to pull that back in, because it would at least show that Omega, if she's not able to do it herself, she's teaching these kids that they're showing them the potential, or telling them that they have way more potential than they think they do, because they probably don't even know. Like, they're not showing any signs, at least that we've seen, of being force sensitive, other than having a high midichlorian count. And this could be the first encounter, right? This could be the first time that they see it. Ooh, now I'm thinking, what if it really is it's like the Bad Batch, but it's, the kids, we get to see all these kids and Omega and Ventress as the school teacher kind of thing. Like, wouldn't that be funny? Her with like 4 kids running around. All right.
Yeah, for those listening, I flashed Dale's comment up on the screen about the Zillo Beast the kids connecting with the Zillo Beast as a callback to Ventress.
Yep.
And in that episode on Papu. So just for some context there.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was when I saw it. I'm like, because her last line is, I found something big, right? I found something big. And when she said big, I'm thinking, holy crap, like just like the big thing that she found over on Pabu. She says, I have a plan and I'm going to need your help. Well, why would she need the kids' help? Again, the easiest is she's going to need them to help release this thing. But there's something special about the kids. And I'd love to see her leverage that in some way.
Yeah, and we do like to put small children in danger in Star Wars, so it makes sense.
Yeah, or entrust them with the fate of the galaxy at any given moment. We'd love that, right?
Yep.
Because who
Makes for
better
good-
to do that than someone with 10 years of experience and know-how?
Yep. Good TV.
Yeah, good. It makes for good television. Okay, final part of this episode is, her sitting down. This is Echo's scan. I'm sorry, I jumped too far ahead here. So he gets into the medical bay.
What are they actually scanning? Like I'm like totally confused. Like, what are they actually scanning for a person? If Echo can go in there, his signature is not going to be in the system. He's some weird some, I don't know, science project. Like, what are they actually scanning in this room? Now I don't have any explanation for this anymore.
Yeah, I don't either. I don't know what they're scanning for either. Because he does get scanned,
And he has a weapon.
and he's allowed in.
What else do you need? He was wearing the outfit. I guess that's all it was.
Yeah, just making sure he was in proper uniform. That's what it does. It scans to make sure that your uniform is in proper.
You're just regular.
Regulation.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Whatever. We're not really sure, but he makes his way in there, and Emery sees that he's kind of jacked in. And the minute she saw that, like, she walks in, and they did a good job of making sure that you knew that she saw him jacked in there.
Right.
And he, of course, he says, "I'm part of the special security patrol," and he turns around, and starts walking away. What's that?
He's a terrible liar.
Yeah, he's not very good at it. That's not what he does. But yeah, when she says Echo, I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is her. This is her moment. She's going to turn, or she's going to have, this moment where we kind of see her finally come to the light. And yeah, I think we got it for the most part. She says, "That's your name, isn't it? Omega talked a lot about you." He turns to her and says, "Omega talked a lot about you as well." I thought that was good for him to use, because I think Emery needed to hear that, right? Because I think in a lot of cases, as much as Emery loves Omega, I think she thinks that Omega looks at her as kind of like a monster, like, as part of the institution. Agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is a really great moment. And, Echo gives a lot of hard truths. I mean, he doesn't let people off the hook. He just calls it like he sees it and says, "Look, what you're doing is wrong."
Mm-hmm.
And Omega sees something in you, and it's pretty much only because of her that I'm even giving you the time of day. But, if she believes in you, then we're going to give you a chance. Don't squander it. And Emery, I think, to her credit, she steps up to the plate, right? If you're going to get into the vault, if you're going to do anything and save these kids, and of course he's like, "Wait, what kids?" But
Yeah.
she's going to need to help, and so she's finally stepping up to the plate and be able to say, "Yes, here's my opportunity to actually do something." And if everything is true about her brothers that Omega has shared with her, this is her only hope as well, and her only hope to be able to maybe right some of the wrongs that she feels like she's now on the hook for, right? That she's starting to have to come to terms with and accept that it wasn't just a job. Like, she has been torturing people and making their lives absolutely miserable.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's playing right to, her soft side is the children, right? And I think it's more than just Omega at this point. I think we talked about it when she first realized that there were other kids in there. Right. Yeah, she kind of had this like, holy crap moment, like there's more kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. She starts to realize, and she starts to put all the other things together too, that maybe she's been able to compartmentalize and set aside, of saying, well, this is for science. These are on clones. They're on adults, whatever it is. And now that we start to bring in children, and she starts to say, oh my gosh, like, how much worse could it be? And do I really want to know? And then all of the other things start to feed back into her too. And you start your world crumbles around you. And then you feel stuck, lost, helpless. I mean, all of those things start to come out, right? Because you're just like,
Mm-hmm.
I've helped create something so horrible here. How do I get out of any of this? And so it's crushing, right? And so she's holding it together pretty well, but you're starting to see now, okay, how does she atone for this in at least some small way?
Well, I think it was good for her also, because she has that line in there. She said, Omega, or was it? She said her squad would eventually come for her. Right. And suddenly they're here. Like, and she's looking at this going, holy crap, everything she said is coming true. And this could be my way out. Right. I mean, not saying she's selfish in that regard, but yeah, everything that she said has come true so far. And, maybe she's thinking about what Nala Se said. You have the power, right? Use that power for good. And this is going to be her opportunity to do so. We kind of predicted as much, that she would have that moment, and this is why that line was said to her so earlier on in the season. Maybe we're reading too much into it, but yeah, it looks like all roads lead to Emery joining, hands with the Bad Batch and being part of Team Bad Batch, essentially almost immediately. Steph even said it too. She said, "I love how quickly she got on board with being part of Team Bad Batch." And that's it. I mean, the last scene is something we've already talked about, where she says that was too close. What took so long? All the samples have been taken. This is where she says, "This is Omega saying I found something big, and I have a plan, and I'm going to need your help." So, ended really well. Not to, again, I think we beat the dead horse, and oh no, I didn't. We haven't. Want to talk about the, whether this needed to be 2 episodes or 1 episode. I don't know, man. Like, if you think about this season alone, like, there's probably something to be said about Disney Plus. So similar, hold on, let me just back up. So similar with, like, we do 1.5 hour, 2 hour shows, right? We see when people dip out, right? And it's usually around that 15, 20 minute mark. And eventually they come back. But just in terms of attention spans, right? This is why video like YouTube Shorts and Instagram and TikTok are so huge, because we've been, at this point, I think we've all been conditioned now to just enjoy 5, 10, 15, 20-minute segments of entertainment. And that's it. We don't digest. We'll come back. If it's longer, we'll come back and pick up the next 20 minutes. But in a single sitting, this is kind of where that sweet spot is. And I just wonder how much of that plays into, when they look at, they write out the entire season. I don't think they write it on a per episode kind of thing. I think they write it and they just figure out, okay, where are some natural points that we could cut to kind of fit into that 20-minute mark-ish, right? And so I feel like this, to your point, like, I feel like this probably could have been one longer episode and it would have benefited from it. But if they had to make a decision, maybe based on that, maybe not, but if they had to make a decision about where do we cut this thing in half, it feels like, yeah, that probably was the right place to cut it when they jump into hyperspace. Right? And it's kind of the natural cutting point. I don't know that it benefited. Like I said, I'll go back to what I said at the very beginning. I don't know that these 2 episodes benefited from being separated by a week apart. Watch back to back makes a lot more sense. It feels more coherent, or not more coherent, more connected because of all the right reasons. And the way this ends feels like probably a more natural place that you would want the episode to end and then take you into that final climactic ending for season finale kind of thing. So I'm not saying that that's just a theory. I'm sure there's lots of reasons as to why they get in, where they cut, and that sort of thing. But a lot of this season, I would say, has had some weird cuts, but I don't know that it's attracted. I think if you sat through all of these and watched them, which I want to do at some point, maybe when the season's over, I'll probably have a very different viewpoint and realize that this is really a really cool connected story that was probably better told in one season. And again, no feedback. Nothing negative. I've enjoyed it so far.
Yeah, so some people might know about me that I really enjoy fan edits. So when the fans take content and they kind of put their own flavor, their own spin on it. And one of the things I really have enjoyed is when fans will take a season of content and make it into a single a movie or something like that, right? And I'm not saying make a 10-hour epic or a 10-hour series down to 2 hours or something like that. They stitch these things together. They make them feel more cohesive. The original Clone Wars, like the Tartakovsky Clone Wars, like the copy I keep on my server is one that's all stitched together. So it's just one continuous thing. There's no breaks for credits or anything like that. You just kind of go into the next one. And I think if we were to do something like this with season 3 of Bad Batch, it probably flows a little bit better. I like that these are 2 separate episodes. I think my only argument is they could have been bundled together as a 2-episode week, right? I think to your point of like I like them having the space to be able to explore these things. And I understand it's a little bit slower pace. I feel these things too, of where we don't want to sit for more than 20-25 minutes and we feel like we could have done this whole season. I think I read one comment, this whole season could have been compressed into 4 episodes or something like that. But where that does a disservice to the content is when it feels like you're just blitzing through each one of the stories, and you start to make concessions just to get you from point A to B to C to D to E to F. You're just jumping in. There's no strife. There's no challenge. There's no hardships. There's no uncertainty. There's no tension. There's no buildup, right? And that's the thing that these episodes are doing. But doing them on a weekly basis, if we were able to binge these episodes, I think our perspective would be a little bit different. Yes, we would still have moments of that where we would say, okay, yeah, this episode we probably could have condensed this a little bit more. We didn't need to make it a whole episode. It could have been bundled with another one. But some of these, I think they really do play better. And I think these 2 episodes are an example of this. Having each of those moments kind of go through. Now, would I have potentially maybe, reorganized them if they were one big episode or something? Maybe. But creative liberties, right? And this is the team this is how they want to present that data. But I like that we do have the time to explore this. At the beginning of the season, when we were doing final hype, the trailer and everything else, one of the things that we keep coming back to is that we want each episode to have the opportunity to breathe. We want the season to feel like it's a longer period of time and it doesn't feel like they accomplished all of this in a week. We want it to feel like this takes many weeks or even a few months or maybe over the course of it feels like it was hard. It feels like it was challenging. I think those are the things that make it feel more rewarding when we get to the end of the season. And if that payoff hits and it hits hard and it hits well, everything that came before it, you have to thank for that, I think. And so I think this is going to be a season where we step back, we say, okay, what does the whole body of work look like before we start to judge individual episodes about how we felt about how long it took? Because if that last episode really hits and it hits the mark and lands, we have to go back and say, okay, every episode or most of those episodes really did help deliver that finale for us in that way. So it's very much a higher, you have to take a step back and gain a little perspective once we're done. I think this is one of those seasons that it doesn't feel like every episode is just the most amazing thing we've ever watched. But when we step back and look at it as a package, we're going to feel really good about how the season turned out.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like I said, it wasn't a slight in with any regards at all. It's, I think it stood out for these 2 episodes more than anything. And probably because I enjoyed the first episode more than the second and didn't feel like the second one really needed to stand alone. That's really it. But I do, again, there's something to be said about week to week releases as opposed to the big bang. And I love this. I'll take week to week episodes over an entire season or, in one sitting any day, all day long, because I love that water cooler talk and it works well for us to do shows.
I do too, but I'm super impatient too. So I want to know.
Yeah.
But it helps with the show. That's for sure.
Yeah, that helps for the show for sure. Let's see. So I think we got, let's talk about this. So Skywalker's Academy, Dell said, aside from predictions next week, we need to know if these rumors are true about a 15th episode at an hour and 15 minutes long. Secretly hidden episode 16 will be revealed next week. I haven't found a credible, and again, leaks are a funny thing. You've got people that are pretty good. And by pretty good, meaning they make mistakes and they don't get it right, but they get some stuff right. This is not one of them that I feel like has really got legs. Like, I love the idea, and it is weird to me that they end on 15 and not 16 because that's what we're used to, right? So could they pull this off? Would they be doing this? Maybe. I wouldn't say I would be that, surprised if they did. I think it would bode well because kind of what we said at the very beginning, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be wrapped up. Maybe it doesn't have to be wrapped up, but I think we're kind of expecting it to, at least in some regard. And, knowing what we know with how Rebels ended and some of the other series, there's always kind of like these little moments. If it's only at least 5 minutes, 10 minutes long at most, 5 minutes is probably way too much actually, but there's something that gives you a sense of like, here's what to come next, right? Even if they're not telltaling. We got it in the finale for Ahsoka. We got it in Star Wars Rebels. That was probably the most glorious one because we got to see what the future looked like. But if they did something like that, you got to give that time in addition to everything else. I don't know that we're going to get an episode 15 again that's over 50 minutes. I would say that's really pushing the limit in terms of what they've done just historically and the trajectory of this series and other series like it. I don't think it's going to be that long. So if you think about it that way, then maybe they could sneak in the last episode. I don't know what they benefit from doing that. Honestly, it seems like they would just advertise it outright. It's just, there's no precedence for them to have done this before. So I'm not saying they wouldn't, but I don't know. I don't like the idea. I'd love for it just to be 50. Let's just get season 15. Give me 50 minutes. Give me a 5-minute epilogue. I don't have to have everything wrapped up, but give me some sense of where Omega is, because I think that's where we're going to be wondering, right? Where does Omega end up? Where does Rex end up? Where does the Bad Batch end up? What happens after that? Do that. And if you can do that in 50 minutes, yeah, I think we're fine. I think we're okay. That's all I want.
I think I'm pretty close to where you're at on this one. I think it doesn't make sense. Like, why wouldn't you just advertise it and say we're going to have a 2-episode finale? on the last week, because I don't think we're going to get another episode the following week, because we've got Tales of the Empire, and then we start to lead into Acolyte.
Mm-hmm.
So does that make sense? And are you going to release 2 episodes on the same day? You could just do just advertise it. So I mean, just say you're going to get a 2-episode premiere, people would lose their minds. They would think this is fantastic. This is perfect. And so it doesn't make sense. I don't think if we get a longer season finale, that would make sense. I think we had a really long premiere for season 1, that we would wrap it up with a longer episode for, the season finale or the series finale. I think would make sense too. And would give them the time to, again, it's take however much time you need to tell the story and to finish it the way you want to end it. And I'm with you. I think the chances of an epilogue are pretty fair, right? I mean, we've done it once before. We can do it again, and it works pretty well. And you can set other content up, and you can fill some of those gaps in later, or you can get a little bit of closure for where your characters end up. Does it start to feel a little cliche or whatever that it was going to do at the end of every series? Maybe so, but there are ways you can work it and it would work. I would rather them just kind of tell the story and our characters start to go in directions, and epilogues are not always necessary, right?
Right. Yeah.
And then we just do more content later on. So, but I'm with you. I don't think that the secret episode 16 makes a whole lot of sense. Why wouldn't you just advertise it as a 2-episode finale? Or you just advertise it, hey, it's a 45-minute or an hour episode, for episode 15, and we're done with it. So I think people are excited that there's the possibility of it. It's something to talk about. It's something to be energized about, and speculate that something that we could get right or whatnot. But at the end of the day, if I'm Lucasfilm, like what does that really benefit me?
Yeah, like I said, as a fan, I love the idea, and it's fun to talk about and speculate.
Absolutely.
But as Disney and Lucasfilm, like, it makes no sense. Like, why would you do that? Like, again, there's no precedent. It doesn't really buy you anything, and I mean, they've changed precedents before as well,
sure.
but
yeah,
you're not getting more subs from this, right? You're going to get more subs by saying we're giving you 16 episodes out of the gate. You're not going to get more subs by, hey, we're telling you 13, but it could be 14 in the next series, or we're telling you 12, and we're going to surprise you with 24 because you never know. We're just that unpredictable. That's not good from an investment standpoint. It's not good for a business. But maybe it's a one-off too. I don't know. So I'm not poo-pooing the idea. Again, I just don't think it's going to happen.
I mean, if they gave us 2 next week, I ain't complaining. I mean, that's for sure. I'm not complaining if they give us 2 episodes. It would just be a little surprising, and it'd be like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Whatever. It could have been an hour-long finale for all I cared, but it works.
Yeah. Let's see. There was some other stuff I wanted to. I don't know if there's anything else here. Forget. No, I think that's it. I think we were talking. There was some discussion about the binge episodes and as well, but I think we've kind of covered all the bases. So, but what bases we haven't covered?
Yeah, all of our amazing people in the live stream. So if you're listening to this show, thank you so much for the download. We certainly appreciate it. We'd love for you to join us on the live stream at cantinacast.com/YouTube. You could be with these amazing people in the chat: Skywalker's Academy, Steph, One Up versus CPU, JJ Skywalker, Vader's Girl, Sky, Rebel Scum, My Star Wars Guys, Riley, everybody that was in the background. Thank you all so much for coming out. We do hope that you'll get involved in the chat. A lot of great conversation there. We do try to pull those up on screen as well. And we do this most Thursdays at 9 p.m., although with Acolyte maybe returning to Tuesday nights, we'll have to evaluate, see what a Wednesday looks like. So we invite you to like the video, subscribe to the channel so you're notified whenever we do schedule a new video. We try to schedule those a couple of days in advance. So you have lots of time to work it into your busy schedules. But yeah, come out there, like the video, leave us a comment, let us know what you're most excited about for the finale and who lives and who dies. I mean, we are officially on the death watch, on the clock. Who's going to make it? Who's not going to make it? I've seen actually One Up versus CPU just brought it up. CX2 takes his helmet off post credits, right? So, and he looks like a clone. We already know what they look like.
I thought he said Chuchi was going to be CX2. Wouldn't that be? I don't know where that was in there. I thought,
how would she have tried to kill herself? I mean, that was interesting, but
yeah.
But I mean, so give us your speculation for what we're going to get in the finale. There were a lot of fun comments in there. So if you want to leave us a line there, we would certainly appreciate it. And of course, it always helps us with social engagement, which we certainly appreciate.
Yeah. Speaking of social engagement, if you'd like to engage with us more, this Sunday, we will be back again for, so 9 p.m., Laura and I are going to kick off Star Wars, the High Republic Adventures. And that is going to be the first 4 issues of the Daniel Jose Older written series taking place in Phase 3 of the High Republic. And then right after that, we'll have our first official Phantom Menace 25th anniversary show where we're going to do a Factpoy top 3 moments of episode 1 of the Phantom Menace. And I think we've got like 4 guests lined up. So it'll be a total of 6 of us. So that may go, hour 15, hour and 20 minutes talking about the Phantom Menace.
That's why you're only allowed to have one honorable mention.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen, honestly. Like as much as that's, I'd love to say that.
Cards.
Yeah, I'm going to have quite a few moments that are honorable mentions.
Yeah, and something that Albert and I are going to come back and do is after we are able to see the theatrical release of Phantom Menace, is we're going to come back and do a Phantom Menace 25 years later show. So very much in the vein of what we do 1 year later episodes or the 40 years later we did for Return of the Jedi, talk about the movie, talk about our experience with it, how it compares, and just kind of do a lot of reflecting. And so if you're interested in that kind of thing, check us out on well, that'll probably end up being a Patreon episode, I imagine, but those types of episodes are a lot of fun to be able to see how our perspective of the film has changed. Especially, this is something we saw in the theater, right? We remember 1999 and the craze that went with it. What does our experience look like in 2024, with that and with the crowds that we see and when we see it and where we see it at. So that'll be a lot of fun too. So join us for that. That's coming in May as well, soon after. The beginning of May, first half of May is going to be a bit crowded with Tales of the Empire. We're going to try to split those into a couple of different episodes probably. And then some Phantom Menace wrap up and things like that. So, and then lead into Acolyte.
I'll tell you what I don't do 25 years later is camp out at movie theaters. That doesn't happen anymore.
Do you miss that? Do you miss not camping out at theaters, like the experience of it all?
Yes. Yeah. And you have to have done it to appreciate it.
Don't miss the heat because it's always hot as what
Texas
down here. Yeah. And it's always in late May. And oh man, that's brutal. Yeah.
No, I agree there. All right, guys, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you guys here back on Sunday.
You're still listening? Wow. That's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.